you. Thank you, Phil. And I'm really excited to be here. And I want to congratulate you and Moss and the entire advisory board for really doing the theme of bringing us all together during a pandemic for a really awesome conference. I was excited the first day when you shared your why of why you do this work. And you said that it's to close the technology gap of the haves and the have-nots. And that's really the why of why I do this too, is that my aunt once shared with me, when you reach a certain level, you don't drop the drawbridge, you leave it down and you help others across. And I really believe that personal, professional development, coaching, it should be available to everyone. And I'm so excited that you guys partner with the Latinx community as well as the African American community. And I think together, as we expand knowledge and wonderful professional development, we can all create a better world. So I've been fortunate to be able to listen to several of the keynotes. And of course, I'm a leadership nerd, so I chose the leadership track. But, Eric kicked us off with the first keynote, and he talked about building success. And he says, and what I learned, like our lives are dependent on software, and these are really challenging times, as Phil had said. And so mental fitness is really important. And one of the things he said is that to have a successful organization or team, that we really need to have a positive mindset. And so I'm excited to hopefully go a little bit deeper on what a positive mindset is. So let me see. Okay. So if you were to tell me 3 years ago that I was going to be speaking on mental fitness, I would have really had a huge belly laugh, because I was not a person in any means that did any type of yoga, journaling, or meditation of anything. I was the guy running. I'd spring up in the morning, go on my elliptical, do a million things like the woman. I thought, well, multitasking is like a badge of honor, and I really would answer emails, check my texts, respond to things, read the paper before I get to work. I spent 30 years in higher education as an administrator, and I really was a human I was a machine, nonstop, even on vacations. And when I was let go from my position, I had all this vacation, all this, well, not so much vacation, but a lot of sick time. I never took any sick time off. And I was able to really think about what is it that I really love to do, because I was able to retire. Thank you, higher education. They really support us well in our retirement. And I found that I love to coach and I love to mentor. And I became certified coach, and my coaching community introduced me to positive intelligence, which is mental fitness. And I'm really grateful for everything that I've learned. And so now I'm sort of the coach I wish I had, as that little chicken running without a head, as my mother would say, and learning to be more of a human being. I used to try yoga. I literally my mind would be racing. I was a terrible listener. I would always be thinking about the next thing, always problem solving in my head. And mental fitness was really, really difficult for me. Mental fitness, as Phil said, it has become a huge topic. And when I got contacted a long time ago, I knew this was important, but in society today, it is really huge. And very prominent people are talking about mental fitness, like Simone Biles in the Olympics. She pulled out of the Olympics because she had these, she calls them demons in her head, and she was questioning everything she was doing. It wasn't safe because she would do a flip and she would lose herself. And it was clear she left the competition not because of a physical ailment or a physical disability, but she was not in the right headspace. And so even the greatest of all times deals with mental fitness. Okay. All right. So, also, if you have any questions, I know there's a chat box, or if you send a question to Phil, feel free to have me answer that. I'm more than welcome to do that, because this session really is for you. So what is mental fitness? Simple definition is that it's your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive mindset rather than a negative mindset. And when we have a positive mindset, it can impact our peak performance, our peace of mind and wellness, and our healthy relationships. And as I listened to a lot of the keynote speakers on leadership and management, which is I was most interested in, they all talked, a lot of them talked about the importance of healthy relationships, building strong relationships with management, with the CEO, the C-suite, but also being able to talk to interns, people on the line, people in your work groups. They talked about peak performance. It's like, you know what, the work we're doing is important. You know, the world is depending on us to not have any mistakes on our testing. And these are really, really important decisions and things that we're doing. But at the same time, you know, we get stressed out a lot. One of the speakers was talking about creating positive cultures, and sometimes, you know, there's a hurry up culture, and the woman talked about this crazy culture at NASA, which they normally had a calm, you know, precise, by the book, slow, very methodical culture. But when the Challenger or the Columbia was being launched, they had this hurry up culture, which wasn't their culture. And so we're going to talk a lot about peak performance, wellness, and healthy relationships. So where did all this research come from? Shirzad is from Stanford, and he is my coach and the person that I trained under. And we pull the work from positive psychology, positive mindset, neuroscience, how the body works, cognitive psychology, how we solve problems, and our performance science, like with athletes. And so we pull this all together, we come up with what we call PQ, or positive intelligence. Okay, there we go. So Shirzad was an executive coach, and now he coaches coaches like myself. And he also used a lot of his students at Stanford, athletes, and participants from all around the world. I participate in coaching training with him, and we have people literally from all over the world. And he's written a book called Positive Intelligence in 20 different languages. What I love about his work is that it's very simple. And we use the power of factor analysis. So we discover the root cause through radical simplification. So I don't know if any of you are painters, but my mother she retired at 78, and she started painting. And she lives with me. She's 88 now. And we have about 50 to 70 bottles of little paint all over our kitchen in these little carts. And but although there are like 64 different colors in Crayola and thousands of colors, if you really do a factor analysis, it really breaks down to 3 colors: red, blue, and yellow. We take that same concept for mental fitness. And when we take all that research and we boil it down, we've come up with just three core muscles that need to be trained and developed and built up in the gym. And that is, 1, your saboteur interceptor, and we'll go over that. The sage, which is the opposite of the saboteur, is your best self, your peak performance. And then self-command. How do we go into the gym mentally and develop these muscles? The saboteurs, the little demons that Simone Biles talked about, that got her off her game, we break them down into 10. And you don't have to memorize all 10, but it'll give you a picture of all these inner critics that we have in our mind. And then we have 5 sage powers that we use to have these strong relationships and peak performance. So let's start off with number 1, and that is the saboteur interceptor. So before you intercept something like a football, you have to know what you're intercepting. And the big saboteur, the big kahuna, if you will, is what we call the judge. And we all know the judge. It's the inner critic. It's the one that criticizes yourself when you get an A-. It's like, what? When you get a 98, what? You're not good enough, you're not tall enough, you're not fast enough, you're not smart enough. This judge says, I have to criticize you because if I don't push you, you're going to become lazy and complacent. Now, the judge also forces you, because you're judging yourself, then you start judging other people. It's like, hey, come on, you got to run as fast as I do. You got to be as smart as I am. Come on, you guys are lazy. You guys are not quick enough. And then the judge also judges circumstances. Like, man, this situation is horrible. And, we've got to fix this. Now, the judge doesn't work alone. He has accomplices, kind of like a gang of mini saboteurs. And one of those is the controller. Now, I am a controller. I shared in one of our little meetups that we had that I'm an adult child of an alcoholic, and my father would come home all the time, kind of crazy. And I was a little kid. I didn't know why he was so crazy. And so I think when I grew up, I would try to be this responsible one, the oldest daughter. And I was always controlling things, thinking that I could control things, which you really can't control things because life happens. But you feel like, well, I have to be the responsible one. I have to control. If I don't control things, everything will go into chaos. That's the controller that I have a lot of. Stickler. I have a lot of these. What you'll find is you'll have a lot of these saboteurs. Stickler. I'm uber responsible. Never turn anything late. I have this belief that, there's a right way to do things and my way is the right way. I'm really hard on staff, hard on myself. I've been known to make grown men cry, very inflexible and very impatient. The avoider. So I used to think, well, I'm not an avoider. Well, I had a staff that avoided doing their taxes and they all filed their taxes late. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're like, you know the date. Why would you ask for an extension? So I don't avoid difficult tasks. I kind of thrive on difficult tasks. But what I do avoid is confrontations, difficult conversations. That's kind of like, you avoid it. You don't like doing it. Hopefully, if you avoid it, it'll take care of itself. Avoiders think, well, I don't want to offend anybody. And I need to be, sort of not a pleaser, but, they basically just avoid everything, hoping everything will go away. They procrastinate. That's what they do. Now, hyperachiever. I'm sure we have a lot of hyperachievers in the house. The hyperachiever is you're never really satisfied and you get your kind of self-worth based on achievement. And so basically, it's like, okay, I'll be satisfied when I get my master's degree. And it's like, oh no, I'll be happy when I get my doctorate. Or I'll be happy when I get my house, or I'll happy when I become a dean of students. Then I become a dean of students. It's like, well, I'll be happy when I become a vice president. You're never really happy because you're constantly pushing yourself. And your self-worth, your competency is all based on achievement, not just who you are. You can't just, do nothing. It's very difficult for me to sit and just be still and do nothing. Pleaser. I coach a woman and she told me straight out, I'm a pleaser. She's, one of seven, the youngest of 7 kids. And she has a hard time setting boundaries. She, wants to please everyone, which you can't please. We all know that the longer you live, you can't please everyone. The victim, woe is me. They want attention. Everything is happening bad. And then they feel like, what, everything is against me. The people are against me. My boss is against me. I'm the victim. And then restless. Okay. Before the word FOMO came out, I was like, what is that? What are they talking about? Like I was the queen of FOMO without even realizing it. Very, very restless. Go from project to project. My staff could not keep up with me because I would start a project and let's do this review and then let's do this. I was always planning vacation after vacation because, this belief, life is short and you've got to do everything you can as quick as you can. And the problem was I was never really present. Like I said, I went from human doing to human, I'm trying to be a human being, never really present, never really in the moment. Horrible listener, because I would be listening and trying to solve the problem and trying to think of the next thing that we would have to do. So I have a big restless saboteur, hypervigilant. When COVID's here, we all got to get shots. There's danger, danger, danger. And the problem is if you're constantly shouting danger, people aren't going to listen to you after a while. Everything's going to go wrong. The sky is falling. Blah, blah, blah. And then the last one is hyper rational. And this one is really interesting because when I was listening to a lot of the speakers, there's this one person that asked this really great question about emotional intelligence, and it was under a leadership workshop. And he says, we have to make decisions that require data and analysis. And he goes, we don't have time for this woo-woo stuff. What do you think? And the speaker said, every problem is a people problem. Several of the speakers said this. Every problem is a people problem. Our problems are people problems. And we have to also not just look at the data. And I'm used to looking at data. I was in higher ed around a whole bunch of PhDs, and everything is data, data, data. But we have to look at the whole picture. And when we only look at the data, working with people is messy. They have emotions. And the hyper rational is like, hey, these emotions get in the way. We got work to do. We got decisions to make. The communication that it takes is really important. And I just wanted to read some of the justification lies of the hyper rational is that they get frustrated with others being emotional and not rational enough. And their rational mind is the most important thing, and it should be protected from the wasteful intrusion of people's messy emotions and needs so it can get the work done. And the impact is that it limits the depth and flexibility of relationships in work, which we talked all the leadership track. They talked about relationships and life by analyzing them rather than experiencing the feelings. And it also intimidates less analytically intense people. And so, one of the things my coach Shirzad said about hyperrationals is actually a lot of hyperrationals really have a lot of emotions and very intuitive, but they don't use it because they think, oh, it's not important. Well, it is. So those are having a hard time moving forward. Okay. So we actually have a positive intelligence test. So, to intercept your saboteurs, you got to know what you're intercepting. And we have all of them, but we do have a free test actually that helps you see where your strongest saboteurs are. And this one is Sarah's, but it could be me. I'm very strong stickler, restless, controller, hyperachiever. So the saboteurs, somebody says, what a great site. I see myself in many of these characters. I know. I thought I only had the top 3. And then when I learned about all of them, I said, oh my God, I have all of them. Okay. All right. So the saboteurs, no surprise, they live in our heads and mainly in the left part of your brain. And they motivate you through negative emotions, okay, like fear. I have huge fear of failure. Okay, that's why I'm such a stickler and hyperachiever. Huge fear of failure. Stress, anger, guilt, shame, insecurity. This is how the saboteurs motivate you. The sage operates on the right side of the brain, and they motivate you through positive emotions like empathy. And one of your leadership speakers said, empathy is a really important skill, non-technical skill to have. Curiosity, designers are curious, they're creative. You're living in alignment with your passion and your values and your purpose. This all gives you clarity, peace and calm, and laser focus action. So this is the sage, laser, peace and calm, clarity, laser focus action. Okay, I'm still having problems moving to the next slide. Okay, there we go. So now the saboteurs, they will generate success. So for example, I coached a team in India, and one of the persons on the team said, but Julie, she goes, I've got master's, I have a PhD, I have this good job. And I said, if I didn't have my hyperachiever, I don't think I would have accessed this success. And I said, what has your hyperachiever cost you? And without even thinking, right after I said that, she said, my happiness. She goes, I'm never satisfied. She goes, I used to think it was my mother pushing me, but now I realize when I learn about these saboteurs, it's really myself. It's my own saboteurs that are pushing me. Now, the sage power, on the other hand, generates your highest success and sustained happiness. So that's why we want more of the sage power to push us, because it's more of a sustained happiness. So I want to share a little bit about my journey. Hopefully it might be helpful to learn this about the sage and the saboteurs. So if you look on the left-hand side, this is my childhood picture. And this is, and we like to use our childhood pictures because it's kind of like your true essence, right? And this is me. I'm very positive. I'm very curious. Believe I'm getting ready to go on a vacation because we have suitcases on top of the car. I'm toasting you with a pretzel, and today I'd probably toast you with a glass of champagne. But this is my true essence, a leader, excited about life, very positive and approachable, and blah, blah, blah. So this is me as an administrator in my sage. I am connected with my values of education and graduating students. This is one of my students here that's graduating. I love mentoring student leaders. And this is another one of my student government leaders. And, I'm in my element. I'm using all of my sage powers of clear, empathy, emotional intelligence, and, just really like in my element here. Now, I was administrator, oversaw 20 departments, sometimes 300 people. And as an administrator, a lot of times I was in my head on the left-hand side, and the saboteurs would say, Julie, you got budget cuts. You got to protect your budget at all costs. So, I had this armor on, right? I was always protecting my staff because I was the controller. I had to protect my staff from the other vice presidents. I had to protect my staff's budget, their staffing, their space. Space is a huge issue in higher ed. We never have enough space. I had to make tough decisions, with hiring, firing. And I operated a lot out of fear of failure. If one of my staff members did something wrong, I felt like it was a reflection on me and it would make me look bad. So I would be hard on staff. So a lot of fear, stress, a lot of fear of failure, to be quite honest. But what I wanted to share with you was this picture in the middle, which is the Golden Buddha. And actually, this is a true story. Several hundred years ago, there's a tiny Asian country that was at war with Burma. And they said, hey, if we lose this war to Burma, they're probably going to take our golden Buddha. So they said, let's cover up the Buddha with ceramic and just kind of like, make it look like it's not worth anything. So they covered it up with, dark colored ceramic and dirt, and lo and behold, they lost the war and they didn't steal this golden Buddha. Well, this Buddha was like covered in ceramic and dirt for like 200 years. And this is a true story. And, they're like, okay, we got to clean up the monastery or wherever the Buddha is sitting. And somebody moved it, or they were cleaning it, and they saw this shiny thing coming out, and they realized that it was a golden Buddha, like 24 solid gold Buddha. Now, the ceramic coverings was to protect it. And that's what our saboteurs do. They try to protect us. So we have layers upon layers upon layers of controlling and sticklers and, avoiders and every kind of protection layer around us. And we begin to lose who we really are, which is our true essence, our childhood picture, or us like enveloping, our sage powers, which is the opposite of the saboteurs. So this is the golden Buddha story, that each of us has a golden Buddha, but sometimes we cover it up and we forget. So like the person I coach, she said, Julie, aren't negative emotions good for you? They pushed me. And I don't think I would be as successful as I am today without, my controller or my hyperachiever. And so my question to you is pain good for you? So imagine putting your hand on a hot stove. It's hot. Your fingers start smoking, and it's like you can't. It's like it's going to eat up the skin. It's going to eat up, go into the bones. You're going to have burns, for the rest of your life. So in the same way, negative emotions are helpful for 1 second, as an alert signal. But staying in negative emotions hurts our ability to see clearly and respond with our sage powers of empathy, curiosity, creativity, and laser focus action. So that's what we want to remember, that our negative emotions, the left side of the brain, is saboteurs. So we want to move over into the sage. Okay. So let me see if there's any questions. Okay, no questions. All right. So now we're going to move over into the sage, which is the opposite of the saboteurs. And the sage lives in the region of the brain associated with positive emotions, peace and calm, clear-headed focus, creativity, and the ability to see things from a big picture. And it operates from the sage perspective. Now you're saying, well, Julie, what is the sage perspective? And here it is. The perspective is every outcome, every challenge, every circumstance can be turned into a gift and an opportunity. Yes, every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and an opportunity. That is the sage perspective. And let me tell you a story. The story starts in China, and there's a farmer, and he has a stallion, a beautiful stallion that does all the work for him, and he's the envy of the village. The villagers come to him and say, "You're so lucky. You got the stallion to do all the work for you." And the farmer says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Next thing you know, this really great stallion jumps the fence and he's gone. And the villagers, of course, small town gossip, they come and say, "Oh my gosh, now you're going to have to do all the work. The stallion's gone." And he says, "You know what? Who knows what's good or bad?" Well, the stallion left because he saw another stallion, and they made a baby stallion. And then, you know what? They wanted to go get more food from the farmer. So they went back to the farmer, and now he had 3 stallions. And so the villager says, "Oh my God, you hit the lottery." And he says, "You know what? Who knows what is good or bad?" Next thing you know, his son, a strong son, was a farmer also. He says, "You know what? I want to train the young stallion. So we have 2 horses working for us." He gets on that horse, it jumps, and it flings him off, and he breaks his leg. Oh my gosh, his son is out of commission. Now the farmer has to work double hard. He doesn't have a son to work for him. And the villagers, sending him, get well cards. And, the father farmer says, "You know what? Who knows what is good or bad?" Next thing you know, it's China. China says, "You know what? We're going to war." Every single young man, son in the house has to sign up for war and be registered and fight for us. They came to the farmer's house, and The son had a broken leg. So they said, you know what? He ain't going to war. We can't use him. And the father says, who knows what is good or what is bad? That is the perspective of the sage. Everything can turn into a gift or an opportunity. You know, when I got let go from my job, I had a mortgage. I was single. I was a primary breadwinner of myself. And I was like, how is this a good thing? But at the same time, the gift was I didn't know I could retire. You know, I was like 58, and it's like I could retire. My father was sick. He had Parkinson's and diabetes, and all of a sudden he needed to go into a home. And I was able to take him on a cruise, his last days. My aunt, who's my role model, she all of a sudden got sick at 84. And for 3 months, I was taking her to all her doctor appointments, and then she died. And she gave me the house that I'm living in now. So, you know, who knows what is good and what is bad? So which perspective is true? Is it the bad one by the saboteur? Is it the gift of the sage? Drum roll, please. Well, the answer is whichever you believe becomes true. That's why it's a perspective. Okay. Oops. I'm still, okay. All right. So now we come to the last muscle, and this is the self-command. Okay. So Phil said in the beginning, we all go to the gym, but with COVID, no one goes to the gym anymore. But we have to figure out, how do we build up these muscles to get into the sage? So I want you to bear with me. And if you can, feel comfortable, stand up. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes. And we're going to do a few PQ reps, positive intelligence reps. Take several deep breaths in. And then put your hand on your heart and take several deep breaths in and feel your heart. See if you can listen to your heart or not. And put your hand on your stomach and see if you can feel the air filling up your stomach as you take deep breaths. Now, if you can, wiggle your toes, because what we're doing is we're trying to get out of our head. So we're trying to get into our body. So just find all your toes there. You can wiggle your body a little bit. You guys have been sitting all day. Just wiggle your toes there. And now, if you take your fingers and then rub them together so that you can feel the ridges of your fingers, try to do that. And as you're doing that, try to put them by your ears so that you can hear the sounds of your fingers rubbing together. Okay, now take your fingers and your palms, the two hands, and rub them together like you're making magic, and just feel the sensations of your hands rubbing together. Okay, and then if you can, oh, that's what, sorry about that. Just imagine, if you're still standing, just imagine a tropical rain just kind of falling on you. I know many of you are in the Northwest, but we're talking tropical here. It's nice. And the water is just coming down your body, and it's kind of washing away any stress that you might have, any worries. It's all washing away. Everything's washing away. Okay, so now you can sit or stand. It doesn't really matter, but I figure you guys been sitting all day, but it's up to you. And we're gonna if you keep your eyes closed, but you don't have to. Kind of go on a little journey, and I want you to think of like a really nice naturey place. Like it could be by the ocean, could be in the mountains, but it's just a beautiful place, a place where you feel safe. And I want you to imagine like what the wind is like, what the temperature is like, the colors. It's almost fall kind of, but if there's flowers, trees, little birds chirping, butterflies. And just imagine a really, really safe place. And just take a deep breath and just breathe in the beautifulness, the nature, and just, feel your chest filling up with air and letting it out. Maybe even feel the temperature of the air coming in and what it's like going out. And, there's this little bit of anticipation, kind of like, oh, the World Series, it's kind of exciting. Because you're going to meet somebody and you're kind of excited and kind of far out, foggy, blurry. This kind of figure is coming towards you. And you're excited because this is your elder, wiser self at around 80. And this elder, wiser person is like sound mind, healthy in the body, really, really healthy, really, really wise. And they're just very content. They're walking slowly. Kind of notice now as they're coming closer to you, their hair and their eyes, maybe some wrinkles, some gray hairs. Notice what kind of shoes they have. And you just have this sense. Try to feel their aura or their energy. Like, man, they've lived a great life. 80, they're just kind of like not a worry in the world. So healthy. And, you can stand with this person, sit, you can walk, but you're greeting each other and you kind of say hi and hello. And, you share with this older, wiser self a challenge you may be facing, something, a relationship challenge, or a job challenge, a family challenge, or something you need clarity on, a decision, a next step, anything, could be big or small. Maybe you have a couple things in mind, but just pick one. And you share with your older, wiser self this challenge. And you ask your older, wiser self, what's important for me to pay attention to in this situation or problem? And you ask your wiser self, what truly matters here? What truly matters here? And you ask your wiser self, what doesn't matter here? What shouldn't I be worried about? So what doesn't matter so much, and what should I not be worrying about? And now you ask your elder wiser self, is there anything else that you want to tell me that I should know, being that you're so wise? And now it's time to thank your older, wiser self. So you can say goodbye, shake hands, hug each other, but know that your older, wiser self will always be a part of you, and you always have access to this person. So now I want you to take a deep breath, come back to earth, and then you can open your eyes when you're ready. So, for some reason, I can't see the chat box anymore, but so you can put in the chat box. Let's see if I can find my chat box. Okay, so what I love, oh, here's the chat box. Okay. Okay. Mindfulness is the most powerful tool we possess, but I have trouble being mindful at every moment of the day. Absolutely great questions. Me too. How do you maximize mindfulness? Never mind, you're answering my question. Okay. So, to answer that question, we recommend 15 minutes a day. And I'm not good at it because, of course, I'm a human doing, but I try to do it in the morning. I try to have my own leadership practice. And so honestly, I try to like set my cell phone for like 10 minutes, and it was really hard just to kind of stare out in nature. But I had to start with like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes. And that's really important to me. I also have a 5-minute journal that I write in. And I also, with the positive intelligence, I have the app, and it helps me have a focus of the day. So, but we recommend doing it 3 times a day because you get triggered by your saboteurs. Like I never get triggered in the morning. It's always in the middle of the day. And, so that's why we try to do it 3 times a day, but it's not that easy. And Shirzad coaches a lot of executives. And he said, just rubbing your fingers. He goes, I have so many executives and they're in a meeting and they just start rubbing their fingers underneath the table because, the person across from them, you're like, the CEO says, we want that testing done by yesterday, get it done to us now. But it's impossible. But at any rate, moving on, what I love about this operating system, 3 muscles, it's very simple. If you're feeling negative emotions like stress, anger, fear of failure, just stop. You're in saboteur mode. You are not your saboteurs. I'm not a stickler. I'm not a controller. I'm a sage, but you're in saboteur mode, and do some PQ reps. Like rubbing the fingers is one of the more popular. Breathe, just breathe, and assume the sage perspective that every problem can be converted into a gift and an opportunity. And when you, assume this perspective, and it is perspective, try to think, oh my God, the business, they want us to test what? And they want it in 2 days. And it's like, my team is not ready. We're going to have to say, what's the gift and opportunity? And then grow the gift by using your sage powers like empathy, curiosity, creativity, and laser focused action. We can all be, when we do our mindfulness, we can have better clarity with our decisions. Okay. So is it really possible? No, there's probably a lot of skeptics out there. I know I was one, even in really tough challenges. Well, the answer it is, but the speed and depth and the shift depends on the mental muscle strength. So it's kind of like running a marathon. You can't go out one day and say, oh, I'm just going to run 26 miles. You got to start with 1 mile, 5 miles, 10. You got to build it up. You got to keep the stamina up. Lasting change, it's 20% insight, 80% muscle. I took up tennis again after 40 years. I literally forgot how to serve. And I Googled it, YouTube, how to serve. But really, if you want to practice your serve, you got to get out on the court and just serve some balls, right? So you've got to practice it. You can't just read in a book on mindfulness. You got to actually do the work. So in closing, these are the 3 muscles. The saboteur interceptor, get to know your saboteurs. And if you can't remember all of them, just the judge, the inner critic, you're not good enough. You're not fast enough. You're not smart enough, and then self-command. Now you can do whatever floats your boat on mindfulness. Some people walk, some people jog, some people do yoga, journal, dance, get out of your head into your body. Okay. I like breathing. If I'm really stressed, I'll rub my fingers because I'm in my head a lot. Okay. And then you shift to your sage perspective. Every situation can be turned into a gift or opportunity. And that's when you use your sage powers. Okay. Simple, right? Simple, but it's hard to do. So we do have a free assessment. It is absolutely free. You just go onto the Positive Intelligence website, and some people have taken that assessment. It's kind of fun, but if there's that's the conclusion. If there's any questions, let's see. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Should we treat learning mindfulness as training a couch to 5K? Should we treat learning mindfulness as training a 5K? Oh, there's your answer. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, mindfulness, that's right. It's like going to the gym, it's training. And like Phil said in the beginning, we learn a lot about physical fitness, but we don't learn about mental fitness, until we hit like rock bottom and we have to have a big time out. And so it's a little bit every day. A little bit adds a lot. Okay. Phil, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just really appreciative of your talk and bringing up these things, in terms of the saboteur. I think most of us have that not good enough conversation at one time or another, probably every day, but we don't really realize where it's coming from. And that it's a really powerful thing to do, to get aware of it, right? That's the second step, is really getting aware of it and taking control of it and kind of putting it aside. I think I shared with you during your webinar that sometimes when I'm feeling some of these negative things, I pretend that there's a man on my shoulder and he's talking to me and he says, Phil, you don't have to be like that if you don't want to be. So I think we all have these little conversations in our head, whether they're big or small. They're, to some degree, they're there for sure.
We got a good question. How much of our stress is from our parents? Well, I don't really know the answer to that, but yes, I think our parents do provide us with stress. However, you can, when you learn to, so that would be a saboteur and your parents would come out as a saboteur. it's hard to draw that fine line. Is it the saboteur or is it my parents? So, people respond in two ways. Okay. They respond out of the saboteur, which is fear-based, and they respond in the sage, which is, peace and calm, ease and flow. Okay. The sage is ease and flow. And if you think about the parents, right, they're trying to protect their kids, right? It's all about protection. Wear a helmet. Why do we have to wear helmets when we ride a bike, right? They're like, you got to go to college. You got to go to college, right? Because you're going to be a loser if you don't go to college. Well, that could be true, but there's lots of successful people that go, marry somebody in your same, race. Everything is about protection. So, so you have to know that the voices, wherever they come from, they are saboteurs. So there's a raised hand somewhere, but I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, that's a great question. Jackie has a raised hand. Can you let Jackie ask her question, Phil?
Maybe Moss can, or.
Oh, sorry, no question. Great talk. Okay. May have to type in chat now.
Hey, Julie, this is Brian, President of PNSQC. I've got one for you.
Okay.
Can you break down and describe diversity and culture as it relates to, and this is kind of where I'm going with this. For one person, like you said, everything's relative, but according to their culture, upbringing, or maybe, living somewhere else, pushing the boundaries for them is an achievement, but yet for Western culture, US, it would be like, oh yeah, we covered that when I was 11. I'm speaking hypothetically, but you see where I'm going here. How do we understand that in our own perspective and perspective of each other's as we help each other along?
So that's an excellent question. Let me see if I get the question right. Like, how does race and culture affect like the saboteurs?
Right. So kind of like it builds on the parent side. The environment that we started from is all different for every single one of us. And so what the coloring in the lines or the perspective or what we're taught what we're supposed to do changes. And so.
Okay, I'll share my own experience as Asian American. Right?
Yeah.
I'm third generation. I don't speak Chinese, but I'm very, very Asian. And I have this hyperachiever, like I represent myself. I represent my family. I represent Chinese people. I represent Asian American people. And that's the pressure like a lot of first generation people put on themselves. If you're African American, you're out there in the tech world and you're one of, a few, you have this undue kind of fair, unfair or not pressure on you to be a good role model for others. When I was actually, I saw Phil when he was in China, and I visited the president of Peking University, and I was a vice president at the time, and I was with some other vice presidents, and we were meeting the president, and he spoke in Chinese, and the interpreter, said tried to interpret it, but the leader brought me into the van. She says, I don't think he interpreted it right, but what he said was, he goes, I was really, it was really great to see, an Asian American in that level of a role, because I was a vice president at a university. And he goes, I'm really proud of you, and it's kind of like, it was like, okay, China's proud of me. Okay, can I just let go of the pressure a little bit now? But there's just so much pressure that I think people of color put on themselves. And nobody puts it on me. It's like I put it on the same thing with the parent question. I'm third generation, but I still put this pressure of being Asian, supposed to be good at math. And I'm like, I'm not good at math. I have nieces and nephews, and my nephew had like a A- or a B and everything. Oh, you got it. And I was like, no, what are we doing to them? That doesn't, we shouldn't be doing that. We have to accept ourselves regardless of the grades, regardless of the job. And Yi says here, Chinese Americans get more stress from parents in ways other ethnicities cannot understand. And I I kind of agree. I think, what do they have a term like dragon parents or something like that? Tiger moms? Yeah. I mean, Asian parents, and it's that protection. The parents, I believe, are trying to protect their kids. Yes, helicopter moms. Oh my God. I worked in higher education and you wouldn't believe the helicopter parents that I had to deal with. So I think that is a excellent question. So on top of the normal saboteurs that we all have, as a person of color, I think it's added even more. Okay, so I coach, actually, most of the people I coach are women of color, and we have this thing. A lot of the women that come up to me have this, they're very successful. I mean, I'm talking like African American PhDs, they're like high level positions, and they're like, Julie, we start coaching. Sometimes it's like imposter syndrome. And like, what is that? It's kind of like, am I really, good enough to be in this position? Or I have to prove myself constantly. And maybe it was a mistake that I got into this position. And you think, oh my God, you have a PhD from this great university. You still think that way. But it's like these demons, they seep in. And so I don't know if I answered that question, but it's a difficult question, and I'll probably keep thinking about it.
No, it's a very good one. It's got a lot of strokes on it, but yeah, you definitely painted a nice view of that. Thank you.
Rebecca says, or growing up with a father who, oh my God, who is your school principal? Yeah, there's just a lot of pressure. Or growing up, if you're a pastor's kid, it's like you're a kid and your father's a pastor, you like have all this pressure of what you should be.